As she walked back to her room, Ngonda felt very confused. She liked Ekong, but she was scared too. What if Mbombo found out about him? What if she accidentally took Ekong's soul and turned back into a mermaid forever? Ngonda didn't know what to do. For the first time since becoming human, she wished she could talk to someone about her problems. But she was all alone, with a big secret she couldn't share. Little did Ngonda know, her problems were about to get even bigger. Because Ekong's friend Ka had seen them together, and he was determined to find out who this mysterious woman really was. The next few weeks were confusing for Ngonda. During the day, she would meet with Ekong. They would walk on the beach, talk about life, and laugh together. Ekong told her about his dreams of owning a big fishing boat someday. Ngonda loved listening to him and seeing his eyes light up when he talked about the sea. But at night, Ngonda would go back to her old ways. She would find men in the city, make them fall in love with her, and take their souls for Mbombo. Every time she did this, she felt worse and worse. She started to hate herself for tricking people. One night, after giving Mbombo another soul, Ngonda cried on the beach. She wished she could stop, but she was afraid of what Mbombo would do if she didn't keep her promise. She was also afraid of turning back into a mermaid and never seeing Ekong again. Meanwhile, Ka was getting more and more suspicious. He noticed that his friend Ekong was spending a lot of time with the beautiful stranger. At first, Ka was happy for Ekong, but then he remembered the stories about missing men. One day, Ka decided to follow Ngonda. He watched her meet Ekong for lunch. Then, when it got dark, he saw her go to a bar and leave with a man he didn't know. Ka followed them, staying hidden in the shadows. He saw Ngonda and the man go into a small house. A few minutes later, Ngonda came out alone. The man never came out. Ka waited all night, but the man never left the house. The next morning, Ka went to the police. He told them what he had seen and about his suspicions. The police said they would look into it, but Ka could tell they didn't really believe him. Frustrated, Ka decided to talk to Ekong. He found his friend fixing his fishing nets on the beach. "Ekong, we need to talk," Ka said seriously. "It's about that woman you've been seeing." Ekong looked up, smiling. "You mean Ngonda? Isn't she wonderful?" Ka shook his head. "No, Ekong, I don't think she is. I think she might be dangerous." Ekong frowned. "What are you talking about, Ka?" Ka told Ekong everything he had seen. He talked about the missing men and how Ngonda always seemed to be around when men disappeared. "I think she might be behind all of this," Ka finished. Ekong stood up, looking angry. "That's crazy, Ka. Ngonda would never hurt anyone. She's kind and sweet. How could you say such things about her?" "I'm just trying to protect you, my friend," Ka said. "Please be careful around her. Something isn't right." Ekong shook his head and walked away. He didn't want to believe what Ka was saying, but a tiny seed of doubt had been planted in his mind. That night, when Ekong met Ngonda for dinner, he couldn't help but look at her differently. Was Ka right? Could this beautiful, gentle woman really be hiding a dark secret? Ngonda noticed that Ekong seemed quiet and distracted. "Is everything okay?" she asked. Ekong forced a smile. "Everything's fine," he lied. But inside, he was worried and confused. As they walked home that night, neither of them knew that they were being watched. Ka was following them, determined to uncover the truth about Ngonda. And in the dark waters of the ocean, Mbombo was growing impatient, wondering why it was taking so long for Ngonda to bring him the last of the souls she had promised. The stage was set for secrets to be revealed and hard choices to be made. Ngonda's two worlds were about to collide, and nothing would ever be the same again. As days passed, Ngonda felt more and more torn. She really liked Ekong and didn't want to hurt him, but she also knew she had to keep her promise to Mbombo. She decided to try to finish collecting souls quickly so she could be free to be with Ekong. One night, Ngonda went to a busy part of town to find another man. She didn't know that Ka was following her again. She met a man at a bar and left with him, but this time, something went wrong. The man Ngonda chose wasn't like the others. He was mean and rough. When they got to his house, he tried to hurt Ngonda. She got scared and used her mermaid magic without thinking. A big wave of water came out of nowhere and knocked the man down. Ka, who was watching through a window, saw everything. His eyes got big and he gasped. He couldn't believe what he had seen. Ngonda ran out of the house crying. She ran all the way to the beach and called for Mbombo. The sea god appeared, looking angry. "Where are the rest of the souls you promised me?" he growled. "I'm trying," Ngonda said, "but it's getting harder. People are starting to notice men going missing." Mbombo's eyes glowed red. "I don't care about that. You made a deal. If you don't bring me 100 souls soon, I'll turn you back into a mermaid and drag you to the bottom of the sea forever." Ngonda started to cry harder. "Please, give me more time. I've met someone, a man named Ekong. He's kind and good. I think I'm falling in love with him." Mbombo laughed, and it sounded like waves crashing on rocks. "Love? You're not human, little mermaid. You can't love. Don't forget what you really are." With that, Mbombo disappeared back into the sea. Ngonda sat on the sand, feeling more alone than ever. Suddenly, she heard a noise behind her. She turned around and saw Ekong standing there. His face looked sad and shocked. "Is it true?" Ekong asked quietly. "Are you really a mermaid?" Ngonda's heart sank. She realized Ekong must have heard everything. She nodded slowly, tears running down her face. "And the missing men? Was that you too?" Ekong asked. Ngonda couldn't lie anymore. She told Ekong everything, about her deal with Mbombo, about taking men's souls, about wanting to be human so badly. "I'm so sorry, Ekong," she said when she finished. "I never meant to hurt anyone, and I never meant to fall in love with you." Ekong sat down on the sand next to her. He was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "I should be angry," he said. "I should run away and never talk to you again. But I can't. I love you too, Ngonda, and I want to help you." Ngonda looked at him in surprise. You still want to be with me? Even after knowing what I've done?" Ekong nodded. "You made a mistake, but I can see you're sorry, and I think I understand why you did it. Being lonely is hard." Just then, they heard another voice. "I knew there was something strange about you." It was Ka. He had followed Ngonda from the city and had heard everything too. "Ka, wait," Ekong said, standing up. "I know this sounds crazy, but—" "Crazy?" Ka shouted. "It's worse than crazy. She's a monster, Ekong. She's been killing people." "No," Ngonda cried. "I didn't kill them. I just took their souls." Ka shook his head. "I'm going to the police. They have to know about this." As Ka turned to leave, the sea began to churn. A huge, dark shape rose from the waves. It was Mbombo, and he looked angrier than ever. "You failed me, little mermaid," he boomed. "Now you'll pay the price." Ngonda, Ekong, and Ka stood frozen on the beach. They knew they were in big trouble. But what they didn't know was that this was just the beginning of their biggest adventure yet. Mbombo towered over them, his eyes glowing like fire. Waves crashed around him, and the sky turned dark. "You broke our deal, Ngonda," Mbombo roared. "Now I'll take you back to the sea forever." Ekong stepped in front of Ngonda. "No!" he shouted. "You can't have her!" Mbombo laughed. "And who are you to stop me, little human?" "I'm someone who loves her," Ekong said bravely. "And I won't let you hurt her." Ka, who had been frozen in fear, suddenly spoke up. I won't let you hurt them either," he said, moving to stand beside Ekong. Ngonda couldn't believe it. Even after learning the truth, Ekong and Ka were trying to protect her. Mbombo's laugh turned into an angry growl. "Then you'll all come to the bottom of the sea." He raised his arms, and a huge wave rose up behind him. It was about to crash down on them when Ngonda remembered something. She still had mermaid magic. She closed her eyes and focused hard. Suddenly, a wall of water rose up in front of them, stopping Mbombo's wave. "How dare you use my own element against me?" Mbombo shouted. "I won't let you hurt them," Ngonda said. "This ends now." For what seemed like hours, Ngonda and Mbombo fought with waves and water. Ekong and Ka helped as best they could, throwing rocks at Mbombo and distracting him when Ngonda got tired. Finally, Ngonda had an idea. "Ekong!" she called out. "Your fishing net! Throw it at Mbombo!" Ekong didn't understand, but he trusted Ngonda. He ran to get his net and threw it as hard as he could at the sea god. As soon as the net touched Mbombo, Ngonda used her magic. The net grew bigger and bigger, wrapping around Mbombo. At the same time, Ngonda made the water around Mbombo spin faster and faster, like a whirlpool. "No!" Mbombo yelled as he was pulled down into the spinning water. "This isn't over, little mermaid!" With a final roar, Mbombo disappeared beneath the waves. The sea became calm again and the sky cleared. Ngonda fell to her knees, exhausted. Ekong and Ka ran to her side. "You did it!" Ekong said, hugging her. "You beat Mbombo!" But Ngonda shook her head sadly. "It's not over," she said. "I used up all my magic. I can feel myself changing back." She looked down at her legs, which were starting to shimmer and change. "I'm turning back into a mermaid," she said, tears in her eyes. Ekong held her hand tightly. "Then I'll come with you," he said. "I'll live in the sea if I have to." Ka put his hand on Ekong's shoulder. "You can't," he said gently. "You're human. You'd drown." Ngonda smiled at Ekong through her tears. "Ka is right," she said. "You have to stay here where you belong." "But I love you," Ekong said, his voice breaking. "And I love you," Ngonda replied. "That's why I have to go, to keep you safe." As the sun began to rise, Ngonda's legs fully changed back into a beautiful fishtail. She hugged Ekong one last time, then turned to Ka. "Thank you for being a true friend," she said. "Take care of Ekong for me." Ka nodded, wiping away a tear. "I will," he promised. With one last look at Ekong, Ngonda slipped into the waves. Ekong and Ka watched as she swam away, her tail flashing in the early morning light.